Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Hunter, Season 2, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, with the Myers situation, we're definitely picking up, vibes that, that's why, because I know someone had a complaint about it in Season 1. They were like, oh man, Ruth was so smart, she never figured out Meyer, and as the season is going on more and more with the flashbacks, I'm like, did she find out? Because she's giving him the stink eye the entire time. The entire group's together. It's 76. And it's like, she keeps looking at him. Either she found... I thought it was just a regular safe, but maybe there's something very specific about it. Maybe there's something German about it. But I don't know what it was. But ever since that episode, now, she gave him the stink eye the entire thing. And he kept looking at her almost like, what? Because I think that was his big concern. Wait, does she know? And it's man, all these people who either knew or eventually found out, Tomas, who ended up getting taken out last episode, it is kind of wild. And you can tell, Ruth, now it almost makes you go, home dude that killed Ruth, was it Meyer that actually set that up? Did Meyer tell that guy, Ruth knows who you are, I'm helping you out, it's really me, Wilhelm Zooks? Well, because when he killed the guy from behind. So, even if the guy saw him and recognized him, I get the feeling now in retrospect, we don't know if that's where this is going, but I almost get the feeling Meyer might have set that up because he found out or realized Ruth figured out who he really was. So... the guy who that they ended up killing in Season 1 for killing Ruth might have actually been the one who killed Ruth, but Meyer might have been the one that sent him, maybe. Once again, he wanted to seem so noble and all that, but now you have all this added context of oh, you want to be I became noble, I made up for my past. It doesn't completely erase it, but I'm able to do more. I was able to do so much good as Meyer, which, yes, but now you have this lens of this whole hunt was for other reasons, Nevertheless, they end up finding out about, was it South America, Buenos Aires, they end up finding out about a whole bunch of dead Nazis, and it's oh, there's a lone wolf. Turns out that lone wolf was Hava, I keep saying Shava, and Harriet and her, and Meyer went down there to find her, and they did, and in that moment, it's oh, I know a Meyer Alphaman, he died alone with my, but then it's wait, Haba, because I know Meyer Offerman because he was in love with my sister, and it's she's probably that situation of once again, her and Ruth both picked up the whole thing of either she was oh, I know I'm Meyer Offerman because he loved my sister, so it can't be you because she knows what he looks like, and just like Ruth last season was kind of oh, you look different. She could tell something was off, but she couldn't quite tell. So I don't know if that's what Hava was getting at, or whether it was more so a thing of oh, you can't use that name because that's a man I know because he's the man who loved my sister. Why would he be here otherwise? But it's yeah, we're here because we're at the same mission. So it wasn't just Harriet. Meyer knew about it as well. So I guess they went back to the team and said yeah, we found nobody. I guess maybe that's the justification for it. I don't know. How they were able to get around that whole conversation. It could have just been either we found the person, or most likely oh, that person's already dead, or we just never found them, or something like that. Probably that's most likely the easier lie, just being yeah, we tried looking for them, but it ended up being a dead end. We haven't found this person, and they just kind of disappeared into myth and legend type of thing. This lone wolf Nazi killer. To be fair, she had been doing it for a while because the earliest kill we've seen storyline wise was her at 72 in the first episode of the season, so. And we got Hava's perspective on things, finally kind of understanding why. And so it is purely, she's known about her sister for 20 years, found out about her, what happened to her daughter, the fact that she had Jonah, but the fact that she never reached out to her sister because she felt like she didn't deserve it. It's if my sister came to me right now and saw me, she would try and stop me, but this mission is too important. We know she cast aside the men that she loved because this mission is too important. And it's my sister would try and stop me. Yeah, we're about the same thing, but it's still the situation of my sister wouldn't be able to recognize me anymore. And she's trying to say right, the mission is too important, and she's oh, I like who I've become. It's actually, I don't think you do. You're ashamed of who you became, because if you weren't, but at least you, maybe there is a way of, you can, both can be true, where it's hey, you embrace who you are, you like who you are, but also, that if you're around your sister, she would shame you from being who you are, or at the very least, try like Zev did to pull you away from this path. Maybe at the very least, Ruth would probably have a lot more success being like your only other, being your only family left. The way Meyer put it, or Wilhelm Hood put it, was right. It's basically like when you've done this, when you've been broken so many times, all you could ever see is a certain aspect of yourself. All she sees is darkness around her and doesn't see herself the way we see her, as the light. She feels like she's kind of a lost cause. That's the real reason why she won't see Ruth, because she doesn't want Ruth to look at her. She's afraid of how Ruth might look at her, I think, at the end of it all. And I think there's interesting parallels with like Joe, considering like him being kind of lost in the darkness, having been lost, tortured, and brainwashed by all of them, which takes us back to present day, where the team's trying to decide whether or not they'll listen to Joe. And I love Joe kind of popping off on him, just because it was heartbreaking to hear him be like, you abandoned me. You guys didn't even look for me. It's like, sadly, the only person who did was Roxy, because everyone else just like, oh, Joe left and yada, it's like, yeah, he left. But it's like, Roxy's the only one that's like, no, I checked every VA hospital. I looked everywhere for you for so long. And we do know Roxy had brought that up previously, that she did look for Joe. But, and so when Lonnie shows up ready to pop him, everyone's trying to stop him, because they understand it's a complicated thing of like, right, Joe did what he did, but it's also not his fault. He was tortured, he was broken, he was turned into who he is right now. But Roxy coming over being like, the man who shot me wasn't Joe. It's not his fault. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And she was always she was always kind of a tie to his humanity. And so, which humanity ends up being a big part of the conversation, because Clara leaves. And she doesn't want to have anything to do with Jonah. And Jonah's like, the fact of the matter is, we're killing Nazis. These are bad people. She's like, yes, but they should be handled through the judicial system. We've seen it twice. Now, they don't have the context of, well, Meyer did go behind Ruth's back and kind of make it so like, yeah, don't look into this Nazi that she was talking about. But also you had Millie go through the legal process, and a Nazi was able to walk away. 2 years of an investigation, 2 years of her life making all these sacrifices, and for what? He ended up getting to go away. Like, there wasn't even a trial. So, of course, that's going to, it is, and it's that thing of also, he has the benefit of knowing, they know, everyone knows. In particular, the U.S. government welcomed in these Nazis just to help put us in a more scientific advantage than like any other country like Russia. So it's like they know, and they've turned a blind eye. And she's just kind of, and he even kind of turns it on her, being like, we don't have that luxury where like we know the truth. You get to turn a blind eye to it. And for her, it's like, did you really kill a boy in Spain? And it turns out yes. But my thought, was like, okay, is it going to be like the opposite of last season? When I referenced it before, the lady had a little boy with her, and Jonah didn't pull the trigger when he had an opportunity. And I thought the same was happening on this regard, but it seemed like it was more so like, it was a similar case of, it's like, oh, you're holding this person hostage. And he was like, it was an accident. He was just probably trying to stop the bad guy, because the last time he didn't pull the trigger, Murray ended up dying because Travis set up that bomb on the train. So I think there's a parallel there. It wasn't just that. Obviously, like, the entire power grid was hit, and that led to them being able to bring in their weapon to try and put in corn syrup to kill everybody. And she talks about the fact is that, she sees the sweet soul that he could be, but it's like, I can't marry a murderer, a monster, which even Jonah's like, are we monsters? And that's the complicated thing. To kill monsters, you had to become monsters in the process. And it's like, for Jonah, it's like, when it's all said and done, what is there going to be left? Because she's not going to take you back, even though you're like, right, there's only going to be one more, but she's like, it's never just going to end. Like, obviously, it's like, he never told her the big one is like, well, we're going after Hitler. It's like, it still doesn't justify all the murders that you've committed. It's like, you could have gone about this the right way. Ruth wanted you to go about this the right way. Millie wanted you to go about it the right way, and you did. And it's like, right, he actually went about things the right way. That's why said guy who kidnapped you was able to kidnap you, because if Jonah had put him back down last season, so it's that complicated thing of, it's like, right, you get no sympathy from me because you're a Nazi, but we all recognize killing people is bad. So it's it's that complicated gray area where it's like, it's easy to be on one side of thing where it's just like, yeah, but it's like, we shouldn't kill bad people. We shouldn't kill people no matter what they've done. They should be brought to justice and stuff like that. But then it's also like, yeah, but we're talking about Nazis who are literally trying to start the Fourth Reich. They got away with the death and genocide of an entire people. Millions. So it's like, I don't know, man. That's why so many of them look at this as a holy mission, because it's like, dude, we're stopping legitimately the closest thing you get to supervillains in real life are Nazis. So that ends up being that conversation and her walking away. And I think Jonah's had to face it before, but I think this is the first time he's ever because everyone around him is in the same boat. So this is the first time he's ever had someone look at him like, well, no, we're not the monsters, we're hunting monsters. But in the process of hunting monsters, you became monsters yourself. That was the whole thing to try and avoid that. And Meyer sadly led you down a path that would eventually lead you amongst anyone to become a monster. Lonnie made Roxy stay behind during this whole situation because it's like, once again, she just like, I wanted to be able to look my daughter in the eye and tell her like I was able to save the world. But for Lonnie, it's like, you aren't kind of bailing out on this. Your daughter needs you, so you have to stay here. So all of them go after Hitler, which he has this whole back and forth between him and Ava. And I love that that's become a thing these past episodes where it's like, right, she's like, what you need is your way of running things worked in the past, but this is a newer generation. You need to be able to reach the youth, the young, the ignorant. Once we're able to grasp those people, we can spread our message even more. Leave it up to me. Like if you had a child, that's one thing, but me as your wife, Mrs. Hitler, like I carry on your torch, I carry on your name, and we can reach out to so many people. So allow me, crown me so that you can move out of the way and I can rise to the surface and carry out our mission to the full lengths. But for Adolf, it's like, nah, bump that. It's me. I'm the one that the history books talked about. I didn't even talk about it, but last episode there was a line where he was like, I was able to do more in 6 years and 1 year. 6 years and 1 day that did more than Genghis Khan could do in 200 years. You know, he's just like, and once again, I'm the one the history books write about. You're just almost basically like, you're a note beside me. That's all it is. You are a throw by my side. The fact of the matter is that's your only relevance. Is your biggest accomplishment in life is being with me. And it's almost like once again, you're like, wow, belittling her. But then you're also like, why do I care? As Eva Braun, it's his wife. She's speaking about the same hateful, genocidal, we got to do it for the whites race thing. Like, so like, who cares? But it's like dissension amongst the ranks. I kind of figured it was going to come down to this. So for things to kind of be where they are is really interesting. And she even plays a game with him and he tries to guess like what the cards are like. She's like, okay, I showed you all of them, flip them back over. Okay, what's what? And he keeps rattling them off, talking about, I'm going to win. She's like, okay, who told you that? And he won't answer. And then she's like, I'm the one. When you wanted to take a cyanide pill in that bunker, it was me who told you. No, we'll fake our deaths. We will survive. She's like, I've had to put up with your nonsense for 35 years. It is my time to reign because I know how to lead this. You don't. Because at the end of the day, you're a loser. Like, who's really going to follow and believe in the cause of a loser? Yeah, I might have had my situation, sure, but you want to be like, oh, you're the big name. It's like, yeah, you're the big name as history's loser, you know? So that ended up being interesting. So, and he ended up getting all the cards wrong, every single one of them showcasing like, right, you don't have the vision, you don't have the foresight, you are senile at this point in time, you are a relic, allow me to lead us in, but you won't. So in the tandem with all of that, the team is making their way and Hava stops to kind of tell the story of the person she heard about when she escaped the camps. The plague, this person who's making Nazis disappear. Turns out the plague was Zeb. She did say they met during work, through work. And they went on for 20 years doing that until it got to the point he cared more. Like she said, like, right, he was a Nazi killing superhero, but he eventually took off the cape and pulled down the mask and she couldn't. So for her, it's like, Zev, we promised that, if Hitler ever reared his head one more time and put on the cape and mask, But that's why I'm wondering, like, did Zev, like, when he left, did he die? That she never reached out to him at even this point in time? So, or maybe he went off and started a life somewhere else, and that's why she doesn't want to drag him into it? Because they talk about Zev, but they only talk about him in the context of he left. We don't know whatever became of him. I guess that just at some point he died, like whether it's just on his own, old age, or, just, life in general. Or like I said, maybe he started a life with someone else. But Hava's like, I'm looking around at every single one of you. You will be the myths and legends that they talk about only if we succeed. So they go in there. Joe was kind of supposed to draw the much attention so that Jonah and Hava could go get Hitler himself, and it popped off into a large-scale gunfight. We don't know where Joe is at the end of it all. He stayed behind, and it's sad because you could tell Harriet kind of felt bad because it's like, right, you already felt like we abandoned you before, and here we are doing it yet again, and you did lead us in here, and you got us, and it's like you were put through so much, warped into their soldier, and now it's this, especially because she's the one that was saying, like, right, if Joe makes one wrong move, I'll pop him, and he was just, I guess, being back on a battlefield is just he's a soldier, and I think he kind of got swept up in it, and maybe his own a mixture of just that adrenaline as a soldier coming in. I've got to see this through, but also like, right, I owe it to kill as many people here because of me being swayed and controlled and manipulated by Hitler. So. But Hava's sacrificing herself so that Jonah could go after Hitler. Because I was thinking by the time they got there, like, okay, either they're going to be in front of Ava when she kills Hitler, or they're going to stumble upon Hitler's body because Ava's already killed him and kind of taken charge. Well, Hava ended up sacrificing herself. She's like, when this is all said and done, we're going to be at your wedding. But Jonah knew like what this was. It's like, because for her, it's like, you are my family and I will not let anything happen to you, because he's the only family she has left. So she sacrificed herself. It's like, right, this fight was always going to be hers. And if it means dying and dying in a way of making sure that this all succeeds, she's willing to. And so she sacrificed herself. And Hitler, kind of history repeating itself, not straight up history repeating itself. He was going to kill himself, but Jonah stopped him because it's like, no, you don't get to decide and determine how your story ends. And so Jonah's like, you're going to go and you're going to pay for everything you've done. So he walks down the pathway with Hitler, and on both sides of the wall, it's like the 6 million that walk with him, they were beside him, all kind of nodding their head, being like, yes, thank you. And they are all falling behind Jonah. For Jonah isn't like, behind him is everyone, are the souls of everyone ever killed, the millions, that 6 million they've talked about time and time again, the 6 million, that conversation again and again of never again letting this happen, So they've got Hitler, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because Ava wants to run things her way. Well, Hitler's out of the picture, so that presents that opportunity. But it's because it is Hitler, she kind of has no choice. Like, she has some power, but they still need to get him back. So she might be in a position where she sets it up to try and, we're going to save him, but she kills him. And it's like, sadly, they killed my sweet, beautiful, I don't want to say the name along with the sweet and beautiful, just because I don't want that taken out of context. And so it's like, because our hubby's dead. Now it's like, okay, now I get to reign, and we're gonna run. I'm gonna run on a campaign of like, my love was killed by them, and fuel that fire. Speak to the young and ignorant like she wanted to, as she stated before. So, 2 episodes left. It's definitely going to be really interesting to ultimately see where the past stuff takes us, if it goes down the route. I think it will, as well as where the present day stuff goes. It's like, they've got Hitler now, Hava's gone. Where does this go? Will everybody who's left make it out of this? I don't know. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.